Today we're going to figure out how to work with 3D camera tracking, and we'll create a video just like this, featuring our character in the main role. First, we need to find a location for shooting. In my case, it turned out to be the nearest park right outside my house. We look for the best angle and start filming. Personally, I'm shooting on a DJI Osmo Pocket 3 camera. The settings are 4K and 60 FPS, but you can just record it on your phone. Try not to shake the camera too much to make the tracking more stable. First, we download the plugin we need. The link to it will be in the description of this video. Next, we open After Effects, File, Scripts, and load our plugin. For Blender, we will do this a little bit later. Now, we load our video and drag it onto the timeline. Click on Window, Effects, and Presets. After that, a panel with effects will appear. In the search bar, type 3D Camera Tracker and drag the effect onto the video in the timeline. The plugin settings will open. Open the Advanced tab and select Detailed Analysis for a more precise calculation. Also, check the box next to Render Track Points so that our trackers render directly over the video. It is simply more convenient than clicking on the plugin every time. Here we can see what percentage of the tracking is complete. After that, many tracking points will appear on the screen, but mine are a bit small, so you can play with the track point size slider to make them a little larger. Go to the viewport, hold down the left mouse button, and select only those points that lie on the same plane. And try not to select anything extra, or your perspective might get a bit off. Right-click and select Create Solid and Camera. Basically, this creates that very 3D camera and plane, which will be our anchor point for further work. We can play the animation to make sure our tracking worked and the plane stays in the space we need. Now select our solid and 3D camera on the timeline using Shift so that only these two items are selected. After that, return to our scripts to export our miracle into Blender. To do this, click on the familiar File, Scripts, Export Composition Data. Here, select Export Selected Layers Only, so we don't export the video layer itself. We don't really need it anyway. If you don't see any of this, the script likely didn't install correctly, and you should try again. Click Export and head over to Blender. In Blender, first you need to install the add-on we downloaded earlier. Go to Edit, Preferences, Add-ons, and click the Install button at the top. Find our add-on and install it. Make sure it is enabled by typing After Effects into the search bar. Now click File, Import, After Effects Composition Data, and our animated camera and plane, which serves as our anchor point, will be imported. Also, don't forget to go to Output Properties and set our frame rate. In my case, it is 60 frames per second. And check the camera resolution. It is important that everything matches our source footage that we recorded, and we will be working in the Cycles engine. Furthermore, I do not recommend touching the camera and the plane. Leave everything as it is and work with the plane that is already there. But in principle, you can scale it. For convenience, we can load our video into the background. To do this, go to the camera, select it in our collection, and click on the green camera icon on the right. Look for the Background Image tab, select Add Image, Movie Clip, and find our video. Now, if we play the animation, our clip will be in the background. Let's prepare the workspace. I set up two windows for myself. In one, I see the rendered result with textures, and in the other, I work on the scene itself. In the left one, we select Render Mode at the top right and turn off the gizmos for convenience. It is that panel to the right of the viewport. And the overlay. When we need to see the render with the background, we turn the overlay back on accordingly. You can certainly fine-tune the overlay to keep only the background, but for me, that is less convenient. And at the bottom, I leave a workspace for working with materials and the asset browser. Let's import our character. I already had a pre-prepared Pudge with an animation, which you will find in the description for this video. To do this, click File, Append, open the Blender file collection, and find our collection with Pudge. It is actually named that way. Place the character on the plane. By the way, it already has the animation we need at 60 frames per second. Adjust the size and place it where we need it. It is time to set up the lighting. In this tutorial, and in general for large locations, I recommend using HDRI maps. You can download them from various places, but I mainly use the Polyhaven website. I recommend installing their add-on to make it easier to manage everything directly from Blender. Accordingly, the link will also be in the description of this video. Open the asset browser, find the tab with Polyhaven and HDRI maps. In our case, this is happening outdoors, so we need the outdoor tab, meaning outside. And then it is up to your taste and what best suits the scene. Drag and drop the HDRI into the viewport with the left mouse button and it is applied immediately. And to control it precisely, go to the shader editor and select World instead of Object. Here we can adjust the sliders for its brightness or the rotation of this HDRI map. Now click on our plane in the viewport, go to Object, and in the Visibility section, check the Shadow Catcher box. This is extremely important because it allows us to create a shadow from Pudge, that is, from our object, and render it with an alpha channel. And for the shadow to appear and show itself, and for it to be clearer, we create a new light source via Shift-A light, and I choose area here and place it above Pudge. We adjust the light intensity because our scene turns out to be very large after After Effects, so the values need to be set accordingly. To set up the light source, select it in the outliner on the right and click the green light bulb icon, Data. Here you can adjust its intensity via power, as well as the color and radius. You generally won't need anything else here, but a problem arises. The glow on Pudge is too strong, and this needs to be fixed. Select our light source again, go to the Object tab, Shading, Light Linking. Click the new button, drag the collection with Pudge into this field, and turn it off. This way, we ensure the light source doesn't shine on Pudge, but still casts a shadow. In general, light linking is a very handy tool that lets you precisely control where and how a light source should shine. It can illuminate some objects while ignoring others. And that is exactly what this function is for. I will add a couple more light sources to make the image look more realistic, because HDR does not always work the way I need it to. Once everything is ready, we will move on to the render settings. Go to Render and make sure Cycles is selected. In the sampling settings, I will set the max samples to about 128, but you can choose your own values. Scroll down further, and in the Film tab, check the transparent box. Now the render will have an alpha channel. Next, go to Output and set the dimensions. They were set to the camera size, but I will lower them to these values to speed up the render. I will leave the frame rate at 60 as in the source, and in the Output tab, set the file format to PNG. Make sure to set color to RGBA, or the render will have no alpha channel. Set compression to 50, specify the path, and press Ctrl F12. Our render is starting. Now all that's left is to wait and drink some tea. Actually, I forgot to make the flies, so I'll make them separately and render them as a second layer, and then combine everything into one image during compositing. And to create the flies, I will use the Omega Particle FX add-on. I will also leave a link to it in the description of this video. After you install it, it will appear in your asset browser. We go to the Magics tab, and I figured that energy particles would be perfect since there are spontaneously flying objects here, and they can be replaced with the very flies we need. As for the fly itself, I found it in the public domain in the Blender Kit add-on. The link will be in the description. I type fly into the search and just drag the flies into the scene. Next, we go into geometry nodes. It is a scary thing, I know, but it works in skilled hands. Through trial and error, I find the collection from which the nodes pull the object for animation and replace it with that very fly of mine. I also changed the color using the add-on settings in the modifiers tab and tweak other sliders to achieve the effect I need. I won't go into detail here because there are a lot of settings. I need to make my particle move along with Pudge. To do this, I press Shift-A, Empty, Plane Axis, then I scale up my empty and place it right inside Pudge. I select the particle, and holding Shift, I select the empty, right-click, Parent, Object. This allows us to, in a way, attach our particle to the empty. Now, with the empty selected, we go to the Constraints tab and find something called Child Of. Using this function, we can link objects to each other and make them repeat movements without creating a new animation. For the target, I select our Pudge skeleton, and for the bone line, I will set the backbone, which is spine. After that, I render it as a separate layer, but with the same settings as the first render. But I will, of course, hide the character itself. Once the render is finished, we open our video editor. You can do this in After Effects, but I use DaVinci. Our task now is to combine the resulting sequences into one video, add sound, and color correction. In the Media tab, we find our sequences and drag them into our project. After that, we open the Edit tab. We find our sequences on the top left. Right-click, Clip Attributes, and set the value to 60 frames per second. A reminder that in Blender, we also rendered at 60 frames per second. Create a new timeline with the same settings as from Blender, in my case, 60 frames per second and 2K resolution. Drag our videos onto the timeline, the background separately, the Pudge sequence on top, and the layer with flies even higher. After that, go to the Color tab. I am adding a bit of color correction. I will not go into detail here, just the basics, so that our hero fits the location compositionally. We add a couple of sounds from the Dota site with chains, flies, and Pudge's own sounds. For example, I recorded his taunt sound directly from Dota. Once I was happy with the result, we go to the Deliver tab. We set the format we need. In my case, it is MP4 with the H.265 codec. I check that it is set to 2K and 60 FPS. We choose where to render it. We click the Add to Render Queue button and then render all. And that is all. Thank you all for watching. I hope this was useful for you. And let's take one more look at what we ended up with.